into the DNVR Avalanche podcast. We got all four of us here, AJ, Rudo, Megan, and Jesse, coming to you live on a Monday. What are we calling this roundtable day at this point for the off season? I think that's basically what it is.
We can, but
call it whatever you want.
It's going to get all messed up because people are going to start going on vacation.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, we did put out a roundtable in written format today as well. So you can go read that on the site. Go to thednvr.com. Go check it out. See what we all had to say about a handful of questions facing the Avs this offseason.
Started us with free agency because I didn't know what else to start with.
It's the best
I figured
place to start.
It would have been really short had I been like, let's talk about the draft.
Yeah, the draft coverage is coming, but
yeah,
for a different day. We've got some stuff lined up. You'll see, chat. I wanted to start in a couple places. First, we saw Edmonton get eliminated last night. We know Vegas will be in their conference final. We know on the other side Florida is in theirs.
And the Avs got locked in at the 27th pick.
There you go.
They were supposed to get bumped up, and then...
Unfortunate.
Yeah, the good breaks...
Can't win them all.
Yeah, the good breaks stopped. What a shock.
Did you guys watch the game last night?
Yes.
That game right there is why I started the jokes at the beginning of the season and made them all the way through to the playoffs. That I just, like, the Edmonton Oilers are trash to me. Like, I don't trust them. I'm never picking them for anything. I picked against them in both rounds. It's Groundhog's Day. It's the same thing every year, and as the playoffs go deep, and even as scoring opened up, you went deeper, things tightened up, it's less space, less room to create, fewer penalties, and the Edmonton Oilers shrunk and went away really out even a fight. And I made the comment in your thread last night, AJ, like, someone has to lose their job for what happened in net. I don't know if that's Jay Woodcroft or if that's Ken Holland. The bag was fumbled horribly in net.
Predictable.
How do you pull a guy 3 times in 5 games and go back to him?
Yeah.
I am, Megan, you and I talked about it a bunch in the playoffs. I'm a big proponent in, like, you have to stand behind your starter and you got to believe in him and you got to go back to him. You did that 3 times where you pulled him and went back to him.
You made your point.
You made your point. You were loyal. Yeah. You said, hey, we're confident in you. It had to change. Like, It had to change. And like, really, it just, I think it ended up in a worse position because now you spit in Jack Campbell's face and sent him in there 4 times to go try to bail the team out and wouldn't go back to him. Like, seriously, if I'm running, and this won't happen, and this seems like way over the top, like, if I'm running that Oilers organization, someone has to lose their job for the way that was handled, whether it's the guy that signed a career backup to a 5x5, or if it's the guy that stapled the guy at a 5x5 on the bench. Like,
yeah,
someone handled that terribly.
Yeah.
It's interesting on the other side of it. I did make a YouTube short yesterday. Vegas has been getting pretty astronomically lucky.
See, I
playoffs.
watched your video, and watching them play, I disagree with that.
I hear what you're saying, but no team shoots that well, especially in the playoffs.
Sure. Well, I mean, but again, they're playing against Stuart Skinner.
And
that's not their
where
fault.
I was headed. Is how much
that's not them
of
getting
that
lucky. That's Edmonton not knowing how to build a team.
I would also say I felt a little bad for the Oilers last night because as that third period is going on and they're pouring on shots, I'm watching. I felt like I was rewatching the end of Game 7 between the Avs and Kraken, where you're just like Aiden Hill just goes crazy.
Yep.
He absolutely just locks it down, and he's great. But you're also watching. There are multiple replays of. He is looking to his left.
Just hits him.
And a puck is hitting the right side of his body and just squirting away. And you're watching it, and I'm like, we watched 7 games of this with Philip Grubauer.
See, I think we watched 6 games of it, and then one game where he was really good.
I'm not going to nitpick that, but sure. And
but I'm with you on 6 of 7.
Just watching it and just being like, this is the worst feeling when you're rooting for a team and they're trying to come back. They're doing everything they can. They're dominating puck possession. They're creating chances. They are absolutely all over the other team. And pucks are just hitting people and bouncing away, and you just feel like this is never going to happen. They could have played 60 more minutes, and it was never going to happen.
See, I guess
it was just not in the cards for them. And when they got down, it just didn't seem like they had it.
They're too one-dimensional. They're still too one-dimensional, dude. Like, we talked about their depth going into the series, and they impressed at the end of the LA series. But, like, it again came down to, if it wasn't McDavid to Draisaitl on the power play, they had nothing. And I was actually really impressed with the way that Vegas played in that third period. I thought they did a really good job of limiting super high danger chances. It's hard to do that against.
Yeah, there's not a lot of open guys standing in front of the net with the puck.
Right.
It was a lot of like, hey, if you guys are going to beat us, it's going to either be something spectacular or it's going to be some absolute nonsense where it hits 4 guys and goes in.
Right. And it's just, I was losing track of the amount of times where Edmonton was getting the opposite of what you were talking about, where they were just throwing pucks to the net and they were going in these playoffs. And it's a bitch when that runs out. But, like, to me, this is why I never...
Still waiting for Seattle to find this out, but sure.
I never once looked at Edmonton as a legitimate contender this year. I never really took them seriously. I thought last year's Western Conference Final was a wake-up call for everyone that said, this team isn't even close.
Go ahead, Megan.
Well, with the way that Leon Draisaitl single-handedly played, the concern was, what form will he be in if he does make it to the Western Conference Final? Because we saw the wear and tear of the first 2 rounds when they played the Avs last year and how human he became. And I still think that would have been true of them moving forward, like even if they were able to surpass Vegas in this series. Because I do think, and I've called them out positively, that I think they became more well-rounded defensively, but it still wasn't enough, especially with the suspect goaltending remaining a problem, even though they tried to address their needs defensively. There were still a lot of shortcomings there. I think that's what cost them. But the one-dimensional thing you're talking about, there was an interview with McDavid in between periods, and he was asked about scoring 5v5 and on the power play
that he did on TV.
And he said something to the effect of, well, they all count the same. And obviously they don't, because the chances to score with the man advantage are not guaranteed. I think that's obvious in how Edmonton loses this game too, because I personally felt they did not come into the third period very strong. I thought they looked flat, and that is sort of the difference in what made the Avs in an elimination game, Game 7, look different from Edmonton. Is they had bursts of being the stronger team, but it wasn't for the full 60, and I think Vegas capitalized on that.
Well, also, I'm sorry, but if your team's game plan is, hey, we'll make the conference final by being 60% on the power play, you're like,
and the fact that you don't,
exactly.
Well, and then they all count the same. To your point, it's like, yeah, they all count the same on the scoreboard, but like, if you can't score without getting one, then like, it's not really equal, because those power plays are obviously extremely valuable to you, because you're saying, we can't do it any other way. We need the man advantage to get there. And then, Megan, you mentioned them being more rounded defensively. And I agree with that. Here was what was on display, though. And I said it before the playoffs started when they traded for Matthias Ekholm and everyone was falling all over themselves. I said, what a mistake. You still don't have a number one. You hitched your wagon.
How many number ones do you think there are in the NHL?
I mean,
let's be like guys that are like true number one. You would build a defense around this guy.
Well, so again, I mean, I don't think you need to like build a defense around him, but like,
no, I'm just curious.
I guess the better question is, how many teams have a legitimate top pairing?
Okay, sure. Because this is where my problem came in, is that I thought Darnell Nurse was horrific.
He was.
He's just not a good player.
Evan Bouchard's too, yeah.
Horrific.
Nurse is bad.
I think he's the most overrated player.
They certainly in the defensive zone.
They spent $9 million on a guy to get torched,
right?
And they spent $5.5 million trying not to play a goaltender. And when you look at those two, the amount of money on those guys alone, you're like,
they chose to do it. They weren't injured.
And then you just mentioned him, Evan Bouchard. I remember my lasting memory for Evan Bouchard is last year in the Western Conference Final when JT Compher Heisman's that dude right out of the box. He's
But
like,
it happened.
see ya.
Jack Eichel did it to him in this series.
Well, so I
This is
remember
the thing about Evan Bouchard.
I remember laughing when
is
JT
life.
Compher did that because when the Avs were trying to start the climb back to the top, my dad, he would always get so frustrated. He would say, the Avs get pushed around like they're little boys out there. They get along the wall and they just get pushed around. They get knocked down. They get, whatever. They get bullied. And I remember watching that and I said, damn, it's flipped. The Avs are the bullies now. The Avs are pushing Evan Bouchard around like it's nothing to win loose pucks. And I remember thinking, like, oh, I'm anxious to see what Evan Bouchard does from last year's Western Conference Final to now. It's a full year of growth. It's another year in the league. Offensive, impressive offensive upside. Mm-hmm. And as it turns out, he did nothing different except for crank one-timers on the power play. And hey, good for you. You picked up 11 power play points.
He's really good at that.
That's
On a
dope.
prolific power play.
On a prolific power play being teed up by Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That's sick. I'm not even being sarcastic. Like, that's sick for him.
Yeah. He's really good at that, and he's going to get paid quite a bit of money this summer because of it.
And that's where my list of things that Evan Bouchard does really well stops.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy that he has always been disappointing given his size. Like, it was one thing when you're mad at Sam Girard and Tyson Barrie because physically they lose battles, but you're like, these are like short fellows. Like, these are like tiny folk,
Undersized,
Evan Bouchard is a big man.
Well, he's
And-
got a
and
little
it-
bit of young Miko.
Oh, I was looking
Rantanen
up his
in him,
age.
where
I knew
it's
he was
like-
young, so
And
I'm
it's
giving him some credit.
Very
there, but let's
frustrating
see.
to watch because I've liked Evan Bouchard for a long
6'3".
time. He's
Large.
big.
Yeah.
And he, like, watching him get beat by JT Compher, like,
Out muscled.
yeah, you just got outworked, and that guy just, he wanted it more than you, and it
To
showed.
the ground. That was the part. It wasn't like
Yeah,
Compher
like-
shielded the puck and had to wrestle. Literally, one hand just shoved him to the ground.
And the perfect encapsulation of Bouchard, because how does that play start on the other end? With him smoking one off the post.
Yeah.
We're an inch the other direction, and he's talking about having the game winner, and who knows how
That's
the series
a
goes.
huge game for him, all that. But the important thing here is, for the 30th straight year, the Stanley Cup will not be going to Canada.
It's all the Canadians that I know, they seem split in half on this Team Canada thing of when it gets down to the last Canadian team, we root for them. Because I know a bunch of Canadians that do that,
Yeah.
and I know a bunch of Canadians that hate that concept and are like, no, I was not rooting for Edmonton. No.
I was like, I almost feel like if I was another Canadian, like if I was a fan of another Canadian team, that would make me especially root against any Canadian teams that are left. 'Cause it's like, I don't want them to be the first Canadian team
we
to
want
win it.
us to do it.
Yeah.
I told and I was talking to Z because we were watching the game together last night. I was like, I hope this continues for the rest of my life, unless the Jets win it. I was like, the Jets are the only team that I will be okay with them winning a cup just for you.
Yeah.
And then she was like, not in my lifetime. And then she called the Jets the Colorado Rockies, and it was the sickest burn. I didn't sleep. It just hurt. It hurt so deep.
Didn't sleep.
It's also not that ridiculous.
No,
in
dude, it
comparison.
was spot on. It just hurt.
No. Just watch that last night. One, I've been impressed with Vegas. I think that they are really committed to what they're doing. Give credit to Jack Eichel, first time in the playoffs, and he had a really good series, 9 points in 6 games. I thought he was good last night.
Finally, we got McDavid versus Eichel.
Right.
Finally.
Right. And and Eichel showed up. Like, give him
Exactly.
credit. Like, he showed up big time. And then can we just open this can of worms really fast for 2 seconds? The Pietrangelo thing. What do you guys think?
Deserved it. Deserved the game.
Yeah. Okay. One.
So here's
Yeah.
why I think it could have deserved more. Is there is no universe where that isn't just intent to injure, right?
The intent.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Okay. Why?
To me, that looked like he was coming over to try to break Leon Draisaitl's stick in half. Like, he was trying to chop his stick really hard, and the angle just got off, and he ended up coming down over the top of his head and chopped him right on the arms. So I'm with you. Like, that has to be a game. I don't think he was going over there to try to get any of Leon Draisaitl. I think he was just trying to break his stick in half because he was pissed.
I feel like that's a shitty excuse.
And that's why he got suspended.
Fair enough.
Which I thought was fair.
Yeah, because like genuinely, and not to sound like this person, but like that actually happened to me once. I got kicked out of a game. This dude was just like, we were kind of talking back and forth, and I just went to whack his stick out. Like I was trying to knock it out of his hands, and right as I came on the backswing, he stuck his stick like into my feet, and I just came down right on his wrist, like hard as shit, and I got tossed immediately, and I was like, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that wasn't what I was trying to do, but you have to toss someone if they do that. And that was what it looked like to me for Pietrangelo. Like, I don't think he was trying to hurt Leon Draisaitl. And then my other argument was he doesn't get protected when Evander Kane comes at him at the end of a period and cross-checks him in the mouth.
There are some serious other problems there. I'm with you on that.
Like,
Definitely.
It was my same issue that I had with the Eberle non-suspension, the McCarr suspension.
Yep.
Like, you set the precedent in the series. Dangerous hits are dangerous and suspendable regardless of when they take place and who does them.
Yep.
To me, in the Edmonton-Vegas series, you set the precedent that after the whistle stuff, even if it gets out of hand, we're letting it go. Why did it suddenly change? Like, I think that Pietrangelo should have been suspended. I also think Evander Kane, a guy who was suspended last playoffs, also should have gotten a game for taking that lunatic run at Pietrangelo after a period.
We talked about this a lot. And if it were me, I would give out much heftier suspensions much more regularly.
I would give them out quickly.
They should let a mom be in the Department of Player Safety.
30 games.
I volunteer. I'm not a mom. I don't know why I volunteer.
I was going to say.
All right.
Megan, breaking news
that's
here.
But
what-
I did want to shout out the goaltending for Vegas, Aiden Hill specifically,
Sure.
and we talk about luck. That is something I think we can point to a little bit of luck for Vegas generally. Misfortune, obviously, in losing LT and LB, but to have this goaltender step up in his first career playoff debut and close out the series against a hot Edmonton
Played
team,
insanely well, too.
that's really fun.
Yeah, it's a
For
great
me.
story. And I think that it's legitimately fascinating.
I think I know where you're going.
You look around the league and you're like, who are the goalies at the end of like
Oh,
at the
it's not
end
right.
like
It's not where you were going.
like who are the goalies? Like if Jake Ottinger loses tonight, you have Philip Grubauer against Aiden Hill going in game one of the
Jake
Western
Ottinger
Conference
is
Final.
actively blowing that
Or-
series
Yeah,
against
and like-
They
Seattle.
pulled twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ottinger is the one that we all came in where we were like, we've got some confidence that he's gonna
good, yeah.
We were like,
he's gonna
pretty-
give him a series.
Pretty clearly the best goalie left in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like blah blah blah. And
And it's been really fascinating to watch how the goaltender position, which is always like you go through NHL history, and it's like who's left at the end, and it's teams with goalies, like teams with dudes in net, not like. And occasionally you get like the Michael Layton, like oh this guy got really hot and had a great, Jordan Binnington type run, where you're just
Leighton,
like
the Emmy
wow.
series was horrible in net. If you go back and relook at the
right,
numbers,
right.
it was
And
terrible.
it's like it stands out though because you
Right,
can
right.
think of that off the top of your head where you're like, Jesus, dude, who were these guys in net? And you look at it right now, and it kind of speaks to just how flawed
Yeah.
the NHL ended up being this year. Like how we talked all year. Are there any great teams? And you had a transcendent Boston team that choked as hard as a team can, choked. And you look at the guys that are left in net, and I think it's fascinating because goaltending has always been such an interesting story in the postseason, and that's where legacies get made. And everybody came in this year absolutely afraid of Jake Ottinger because of what he did against Calgary last year.
Yep.
And now you look, if they blow this series against Seattle, you're going to look at Jake Ottinger as a primary reason
Yeah.
why
did,
they
yeah.
missed out on this.
Yeah.
Well, and where I thought you were going this, and I say this as a huge, I big supporter of Pavel Francouz. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. I was going to Twitter last night to tweet it, and you beat me to the punch. The Edmonton Oilers have been eliminated in back-to-back years by Pavel Francouz and Aiden Hill. This prolific offense, two of the best scorers in NHL history, the best power play ever. Aiden Hill, Pavel Francouz have taken them out of the playoffs pretty easily in back-to-back years.
They're 2-8.
right.
Like you're not even talking about them getting all that close in either one of the series that they've lost.
Outplayed pretty seriously.
Like you're like you lose a 6-game series, you could feel like we got halfway there.
Yeah.
I guess, but it did 4-2, 4-0 in back-to-back years against backup goaltenders, and in Vegas's case,
a third.
He's really the fourth, because you have to remember Robin Leonard is at the top of that food chain.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Like Vegas, what they've done has been, as much as I want to continue hating on Vegas because of everything that's happened in the past, I just look at this Vegas team and I'm tipping the cap, just saying this is wildly impressive.
Yeah, totally.
This is wildly impressive. I don't want them to win the Stanley Cup entirely about their fans, but watching the team itself, I'm like, if this team wins the cup, man, they're good.
Well, and
For sure.
They have.
I am waiting for the Vegas drought, though.
It's coming.
The goal scoring
It's
drought that
coming.
always
Yep.
gets them.
They have a lot of guys relative to what you're talking about. They have a lot of guys on their roster that are easy to root for. Like Mark Stone, that's an easy guy to want to see be successful. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I love that.
They have a lot of really good success stories.
I love that last night, the big line that gets it done for him is the original Misfit line from the expansion, like just still kicking in Vegas. Like I really do like.
We had 3 guys that are great success stories. You
Right,
know,
right.
We all talk like, Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchessault were like gifts
Yeah.
from Florida, but William Karlsson wasn't. William Karlsson was 4C in Columbus.
Yeah. Yeah, and he did. He's not the 40 goal guy that we all knew he wasn't the first year, but like
that
it's a
was
good
not
player.
Yeah, it's a good player. It's a good player. I kept hoping Vegas was going to screw that thing up and they were going to move him because they were just going to get tired of the production taking like
Well, I mean,
Incremental steps
little bit
down.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, when you're coming down here to talk hockey, do something
40-minute first period.
slightly less illegal than what Alex Pietrangelo did to Leon Draisaitl. Go to Illegal Pete's instead. Get yourself a delicious burrito. Get yourself some fresh ingredients. They're fantastic at what they do. Their queso, it's amazing. You can go there from 3 to 6 p.m. for happy hour. They have fantastic tequila. You can get it, all of your pregame stuff in there, because there's one just a couple blocks from the DNVR bar, where you can then come to watch the Nuggets games in their own conference final, rocking the playoffs on that side of things. So get in on Illegal Pete's, go get your burritos, and then come here, hang out at the bar, have a great time watching whatever sports suits your fancy. Or you can also go play some sports with the DNVR gang through Volo. Volo
You guys
Sports.
going bowling tonight?
I'm not going bowling tonight. Are you going bowling tonight?
Contemplating it.
Have fun. I've never enjoyed bowling that much. I won't lie to you.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm shocked.
Not just bowling with Volo Sports, though. They're the largest social sports company in the U.S., and because you play for Volo, that means the kids play for free, rather. The Volo Kids Foundation is a separate 501c3 that provides free sports camps to kids in each Volo city. They have a ridiculous number of different sports you can play, whether it be flag football, basketball. I already mentioned the bowling. They've got volleyball. They've got tennis. They've got pickleball. That's the small one, right? I always forget. Yeah.
Pickleball's great.
Never played it. It's actually
Super
good.
fun.
Yeah.
We just put in a few courts in our neighborhood. They like built
Oh,
some.
nice.
You all come down and have a nice little pickleball
There you go.
practice
going down.
sesh.
I'll bet you Volo will be on those courts like very, very soon.
If they are, catch me there every week.
There you go.
Still don't know what that is.
Pickleball?
Yeah.
It's not worth getting into.
Is it like
visually.
tiny tennis?
Halfway between ping pong and tennis.
That's
is
a
pickleball.
great. That's a great description of it. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just
yeah.
always thought it was tiny tennis.
Tiny.
Can be if you want it.
Volo has a monthly membership. You can use the Volo Pass to do unlimited pickups, drop-ins, and tournaments. It's just $20 a month, or you can get a $200 a year membership. For the first 3 months, if you want to try it out, you can use their beta program, which is just $10 a month. So get in on it. You can also use the DNVR10 code when you sign up at volosports.com/Denver to get $10 off whatever pass you're interested in. Go check it out. Get the
Wait,
Volo
can I
Pass
use
today.
the DNVR pass for the beta program and then get it for free?
The first month will be free.
You're welcome.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Per Chris Johnston, Kyle Dubas, quote, Kyle Dubas says he's, quote, interested in doing anything, with the Leafs roster this summer following a thorough evaluation. Quote, I would take nothing off the table at all.
That's a really interesting phrasing because I heard something like that with the Avs too.
Well, I would not take
That
It's all on the table.
everything's, they will consider, I mean, outside of the obvious, they're not trading Makar, they're not trading McKinnon, they're not trading Rantanen. Otherwise, we'll talk.
Have a talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, the guy.
Difference is the Avs have a banner that Dust hasn't even collected on yet.
Yeah.
And Maple Leafs just got
Flags fly forever.
And the guy that we're most interested in talking about today, about our random round table, JT Compher.
Is it really that interesting of a discussion?
I think it became more interesting after the playoffs. Because this is a guy who put up 50 points in the regular season.
Okay.
Was he really a 2C? I don't know.
he was this year, yes.
And
Do I think he is as a player? No. I thought he functioned very well.
And look, in the playoffs, he puts up 2 points for you in a 7-game series. Was probably your least effective top 6 player until the Avs had to start throwing Matt Nieto and stuff up there that just aren't top 6 players.
Yep. That's all true.
Let's start here. Did he price himself out of Colorado this offseason?
No, nobody? Okay, I'll start again.
Well, actually,
Please,
No,
go.
okay.
No, they can kick it off.
I didn't actually mean to interrupt. It was for the bit.
I'm glad
but,
you did.
But I actually do think he did, and it's in part because of his regular season performance, but also, as AJ mentions in the piece, the thin market for centermen generally, I think is what is going to make him a hot commodity. Obviously, that goes both ways, right? That might incentivize the Avs to want to keep him as an option in the middle, but I feel like I'm just regurgitating my bit from the piece here, but I just think we're talking about it. His career tracks as more of a third-line center. There have been stints where he's tried to play up in the lineup that haven't gone as well as this last season has. I think some of it is he was surrounded by top 6 talent at times, including McKinnon and Rantanen, that makes everyone around them better. And to give Compher credit for what happened in the playoffs too, he's doing it without Val Nichushkin as a line mate, and I think that also contributed to some of his success.
Yeah.
It's not to suggest that individually what he did this year wasn't a significant accomplishment, but I just don't feel comfortable throwing top 6 money at Compher as a 2C option because I don't completely feel comfortable with his fit there, and I think this season has taught us that they need to be comfortable with the fit there. And you talk about how the playoffs kind of changes this conversation. I also think the announcement from Landeskog also shapes this conversation, which makes it timely to discuss because it doesn't necessarily blow the lid off things like in terms of opening the door to tons of opportunity, but knowing that Landeskog's money has freed up some space, I think gives them options to consider paying someone. I just still don't feel comfortable or confident that it's Compher.
JT, yeah.
I agree with Megan that based on the regular season, he may have priced himself out. AJ and I were talking about this right before we went live. His playoff performance may have brought him back into maybe this is a conversation that you can keep this guy. But I agree with Megan. You can't pay that dude as a 2C. Like, you have to pay him for what you want him to be. He wasn't supposed to be the 2C.
We'll get to the
year.
numbers question in a second.
But like you have to, if for me to be comfortable with them bringing him back, I agree with a lot of what Megan said. It has to be at the right number, and it has to be with the idea of like, this is what we want you to do. We think, I wrote in the piece, he's a very important part of the middle 6. He's a very important part of the middle 6. He's got a leadership role in that locker room. I think people really undervalue what all JT Compher means to this team when cast in the appropriate role. And I think we saw that. We've seen it several times, and we saw it on the Cup run last season. Right?
So
it's got to be the right price. If they can get him to agree that, hey, this is just a really nice marriage and it works and it fits and there's a chance to win and I know my role and I can be Swiss Army knife a bit, I'll take a little bit less than market value. Give me an extra year and cool. Someone mentioned it. Chicago was thrown out there a lot. I had hard written them off. I said he's not going to go there. Chicago winning the lottery, I think, potentially changes that conversation. They're going to be throwing money at players, veteran players, who can come in and help
teach Bedard how to be an NHLer,
be a guiding light. Because it's still going to be rough for the next couple of years. Bedard isn't going to turn them into a cup contender next year.
Keep in mind what Edmonton is going through with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Right. So like they're going to need
the road back is still a long way for Chicago.
Right, and they're going to need high character guys who can contribute on the ice. I don't subscribe to that every player wants to go home theory.
I don't either. I think JT might.
I think that there's where there's smoke, there's fire on this kind of thing. Chicago winning the Bedard sweepstakes, I think, makes it harder for the Avs to score a hometown discount.
There's two things for me with JT. Number one, I think he's at his best as the utility infielder, right? Mm-hmm. He's not really a 2C. He's a guy who bounces around your middle six as a whole and just plays wherever you need him to.
I think he's better than a 3C and not a 2C.
Yeah, right. Honestly, I think some of his best play actually comes at wing, despite him playing so well at center this year.
I've always felt.
But on top of that, the thing with Compher for me is that I don't know how much I believe in him being an actual 50-point player. And you can't, if you're Colorado, when you look at that player, the 50 points is great. The Avs needed those points.
Yeah.
You take that. But stylistically, JT Compher kind of got buried, and his whole career has gotten buried on possession metrics. The way the Avs want to play hockey, I think they want better possession play out of their second line than what JT can provide them down the middle.
Totally, yeah. That's why I'm saying, like, you need to pay him. It's the same thing as I guess we were having the Edwin Rodriguez conversation before the show, where it's like, you don't pay JT Compher to be a 50-point guy for you.
Right.
And that's the mistake.
You're going to be disappointed if you do.
Right. That's the mistake that happens every year in UFA. As much as everyone loves Nazem Kadri here in Colorado, like, Calgary paid him to be an 80-point guy, and it was like, ooh.
And he immediately wasn't.
I wouldn't have done that. Yeah. You gotta pay Compher for what you need him to be, and I'm with you. I think he's one of their best that I can remember utility players, where it's like, plug this dude in anywhere in your lineup for 2 games, and he'll do the role just fine. Mm-hmm. He can kill penalties. He plays on both power play units throughout the season. Like, that's what you need to pay him for. If you're paying him to be a 50-point guy, you're going to overpay, you're going to be disappointed, and that's going to be a contract you want to get out of. If Chicago wants to pay him to be a 50-point guy, cool. Do it.
That's their problem.
Let them do it. Yeah, they've got extra money to throw around. If another team wants to pay your UFA to be the player they were in their career year, great. Let them do it. The Avs have shown in recent years they aren't going to do that. I think they're going to make JT Compher an offer that says, we want you to be our 3C long term. We want you to be the rock in our bottom 6. And we need you to flex every now and then, special teams, things like that. Pay him for that. If he's in, great. If he wants to go home to Chicago, I get it.
AJ, give me the magic numbers. What's the highest number the Avs can reasonably do for JT Compher?
I don't know that he gets a raise from the Avs.
So 3.5 straight up?
Because on the open market, he has every reason in the world to say, pay me like Andrew Kopp.
Which the Avs should not do. I think we're all in agreement on that.
5.8 from Detroit.
What was the term?
5 years. 5 or 6 years. I can't remember actually which one. But
Wow.
That's wild, dude.
And Andrew Kopp was fine for them. Like, in the first year of that deal, it was fine. But you look at JT Compher and you look at the 50 points this year and you say, what changed? Where was the jump in numbers?
Yep.
Because it's not from shooting percentage. He doesn't even have a career year in goal scoring. He plays all 82 games. He scores 17 goals.
Lots of passing to better players than him.
Okay, the assist numbers are way up. What changed for him this year? Who did he play next to?
Mikko.
He plays next to a guy that scores 55 goals this year.
And
Mikko Rantanen. Yep. And that's the biggest thing. It's just that. You just look at that and you say, he played next to a guy who had a career year in goal scoring.
He gets partial credit. It's hard to play with superstar players. He gets partial credit, but
there's partial credit there. But
you're right.
I'm not trying to take it away from him.
No.
It's just that if you're the Avalanche, you're looking at the deal that Frederick Gaudreau just signed in Minnesota, 5 years at $2.1 million. He's a little bit older, but his career production is right in line with what JT Compher's is, and they do the same thing. And why would the Avalanche even run back the 3.5, the 4 years at 3.5 that they gave JT Compher when Freddie Gaudreau's sitting right there? Now, again, he's a couple years older. And so this is where I think it's just a no-go for the Avs. Well, because you're talking about if there's a ceiling out there of 5.8 and there's a floor of 2.1, that is a gigantic difference for a role player.
And here's the other part of that. You look at C. Hey, Alex Newhook's waiting right there to be your 3C. Hey, Ben Myers is free 99 on your fourth line. All of a sudden, if Compher isn't that 2C, there's a little bit less utility of him being a center, which should bring his price down.
And when you're looking at it and saying, okay, well, if you bring him back, could he continue to be that Swiss Army knife for you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, he can be versatile and in your middle six and all this. Now we're just describing Evan Rodriguez.
Right.
But you're talking about coming off a 50-point season with championship experience, with center experience, guy that wins faceoffs, plays on all the units, all special teams units, all these different things. Chicago's going to give that guy $5.5 million.
I would push
Chicago also doesn't give a shit if they overpay JT Compher for the next 5 years. None of their big contracts. Connor Bedard will have just started his second contract by the time Compher's this UFA deal for Compher will end. They won't care about that money. It's the second and third contracts that get you, as we're learning with the Avalanche.
Right.
Nathan McKinnon's third contract is the one that's going to be the big spike. The same thing will come true for Mikko Rantanen and Cale Makar. They've been able to navigate around the $9 million here and there, but it's when they start to get into the double digits that's going to cause problems. Chicago doesn't have those problems for a very long time. They aren't going to care one bit about overpaying $1 million a year for JT Compher. And they have enough money. There's going to be enough money in the market this year that we're talking about Chicago, but it doesn't just have to be them. There's going to be enough money in the free agent market and a dearth of centers, because you look at JT Compher, he legitimately third or fourth best center in the market this year, depending on how you feel about Alex Killorn and Ryan O'Reilly. Now, his big thing is he's younger than all those guys. So you're a little more comfortable giving him term. He's also the worst player of those three that I just mentioned. So JT Compher is, I think the reality here is that JT Compher is just going to get too much. If he would re-sign for the same number that he just came off.
Would you push it to, I would push it to 4.
I would give him a 4x4, no problem.
Yeah.
I would even give him a 5th year.
Yeah.
No problem there.
I'm with you.
I would have no problem there. Would he sign for that? I absolutely don't think so. And if he did, it would probably be financially irresponsible of him. But we know he likes Colorado. He understands the fit. He understands the culture. He's
a big part of the team.
Let's be honest here. He grew up here.
Yeah.
He grew up in Colorado as an F. He wasn't drafted here, but he got traded for early enough in his career that he's been an F. He was a Buffalo Sabre for 6 seconds. Otherwise, he's been an F. So I think that's going to that always plays some sort of a role, especially the success, especially the ties that he has.
He'll be one of 4 that was part of the 48-point season.
Yeah,
he's a part of the core.
He has survived that war of attrition of players. He got the Avs got a little lucky that Seattle went with Donskoy and not Compher, which was funny because at the time that felt
everyone
like the Avs lost
him to take
that.
Compher, yeah.
But it is a really interesting dynamic with JT Compher because he has no financial reason to stay, to be honest.
Yeah.
It would just be irresponsible.
The part that sucks for the Avs was Alex Newhook hard plateauing this year, not taking any meaningful steps. Because like you said that about him knocking on the door of the 3C. I agreed with that after his rookie year. After this last year, it's like,
I still think he's a 3C.
I think Newhook is the guy that instead of maybe Newhook being the 2C and the top 6 impact guy that we wanted him to be, he might just be your plug and play replacement for JT Compher.
What's
the guy that ends up playing all over your lineup, doing kind of whatever you need. You need a little bit of skill here. He can provide that.
I haven't seen him being able to like do the stuff away from the puck like that. JT Compher.
I mean, there's
like,
a lot of defensive side for sure.
There's a lot of development to the game that needs to happen.
sure.
There will be no argument amongst us about that.
Yeah.
That's just.
And like I said, had you just seen more steps on that, I would be with you where it's like the Avs are kind of in a point of like, come back or don't.
Well,
We've got this kid here.
Here's the thing.
Newhook just.
I think part of that solution comes with the guy you go out and get in free agency at 2C. But
Or just however you solve it. At
sure,
2C.
two left wing, whatever.
Yeah.
And how much money does Bowen Byron want?
There's a very real
and we
conversation.
talk
back to
about
that, yeah.
we talk about this versatile forward, and Evan Rodriguez is still sitting right there, who had a 39-point year of his own.
The Newhook to Tyson Jost comparison is
It's just wrong.
Dude,
it's horrible.
It frustrates me so
it's
much.
It's one of
man.
the worst comparisons I've ever seen people make, and they make it constantly.
It's so frustrating because they think I'm disappointed by a first-round pick. Oh, it's Tyson Jost all over again.
Even if you want to just purely look at raw production, Tyson Jost has never had a 30-point season. Alex Newhook is 2 for 2. So even if you are talking about just raw production on the ice, Alex Newhook is already a better player than Tyson Jost was.
What's the one thing Tyson Jost can't do in the NHL? He can't finish. He doesn't score goals effectively.
He's
in the
not
NHL.
a great skater.
He's not a great skater.
And Alex Newhook is both of those. He's a
Right.
finisher and a skater. Now, I hear you. When confidence is a problem for Newhook, his shooting
That's
disappears.
what was so frustrating for me
There's
watching him
so
this
many
year.
things about Alex Newhook that need to get better.
But he's better than Tyson
difference is
Jost
that
today.
You see flashes all over the place and glimpses of he had weeks of good play this year. Weeks of them at a time. Not like he had a good game here. Oh, remember that cluster of 3 games? That was the thing with Tyson Jost. He'd have 3 good games. And you'd start to feel good about
And
it.
then he would disappear for 20.
Totally ghost for a couple
So
of games.
here's my issue with Alex Newhook, because I don't disagree with what you guys are saying. And I think he is a player whose some of his best tools are his shot, his skating, his hands. Megan, I lost count of the amount of times I turned to you this year when Alex Newhook had the puck in the home plate area and either missed the net or held it for too long and never got a shot away completely. It's like, for a guy whose number one skill set is his shot, you cannot pass up on those opportunities.
Just shoot the damn thing, man.
And I don't know if that's confidence or what, but that was the one thing this year where I was like, maybe this kid doesn't have it in the offensive zone, because my goodness, I've never seen someone miss this many grade A opportunities by either missing the net or not getting a shot off altogether. It was crazy.
I think what was a detriment to Newhook this season was the lack of consistency, because my dream for him is to be able to become a player like Compher who can flex throughout the lineup. But until he has some consistency, I think that's the necessary step for him to take before he can become that player, because some of the best flashes of Newhook we saw this year were when he played alongside O'Connor and Cogliano, who are a mainstay of each other, separate from Newhook, and then together they bring about a familiarity that you saw a responsible player away from the puck engaged in battles. And I think it took a toll on his confidence when he didn't have consistency, and I think that's when we saw him hesitate, defer, because the tools are there in a way that I think we see different from Jost. Honestly, I think that's where Jost realized he had to separate, is by making better decisions away from the puck. Newhook can do that. We've watched him do that. And then he has all these other tools already built in. He needs a little bit of consistency. I think the confidence will come. I'd like to see a year of him sort of played along the same people as close to possible. And I think that will make a world of difference.
And you and I talked about this on At the Rink last week, because you just mentioned that. I agree with you. I thought Newhook's best stretches of games were those 2 weeks where every night he was playing with O'Connor and Cogliano. He was centering that line. And you and I said, in a perfect world, last season, if you didn't have the injury stuff, he was probably slotted to play with Lehkonen and Landeskog, or Lehkonen and Rantanen. It's a lot better line mates than what he ended
okay.
up playing with for a lot of this year. So maybe he does. The production's a little bit better.
So here's the one thing, and this is going to be a little bit mean to LOC. I'm sorry, but I think there is a little bit of when
Newhook has played 2 years. If you're already saying he's a disappointment, and you're writing him off after 2 years.
Don't even acknowledge that.
I just don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
When
I don't know
Newhook
what to
plays
tell
with LOC, I think he does a little bit look across, see LOC over there, and think, you know what? Maybe I should shoot this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that where if he plays next to guys where he's like, I'm not trusting this guy to finish. If I set this guy up on the back door,
forces
he's gonna
him to believe in his own shot.
Exactly.
It's gonna come from somewhere.
Yeah,
There's-
It's gonna have
I
to
feel
be
like
me.
too much
there's-
though. This year I
there's
saw him like
so
not
many-
trust himself
There's
and
just
double
too,
clutch.
I think
I
there's
agree.
too much of this conversation. We should move on from this because it's not the point of today. But
I don't know. I think
like,
Newhook's a pretty important part.
no, and I think we could do an entire show about
We
this. is what
probably
I'm
will,
saying,
yeah.
is that Newhook is such an important part of the future still, because the Avs are expecting him to take a leap of some kind, and that means that the contract that he signs this summer could immediately become great value if he signs for $2 million and becomes a $5 million player. You know,
If it rolls
that's-
that way, yeah.
exactly. That's exactly what they need. But this conversation of, he's a first round pick that hasn't worked out yet is insane. Because there's
You're just casting too wide of a net. If
Well,
you're saying
and-
that's
and-
true of Jost and Newhook, you're also comparing them to Duncan Siemens, who's a disappointment of a first-round pick. You're also comparing
I mean,
him
a
to...
bust of a first round pick because he didn't become an NHL player.
It's
You're
just...
talking about getting NHL players out of the middle of the first round, and I know people think that the 16th pick is really high.
It's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
Getting NHL players, getting NHL regulars out of that is a big time win. And where we might have done a disservice is talking about him for years as a potential 2C.
I still believe in that potential
I
for
still
the
think
record.
I still think that it's in there, but you're looking more realistic at the guy that he is now. What more left is there to give? Who can he become, et cetera, et cetera? It might be more of just a 3C that's offensively
and that's
oriented.
perfectly okay.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong with
if
that.
you get 30
if you
to-
think that you're going to get top 6 players out of every first round pick, or a top 4 player on your defense, or a starting goaltender, you have no idea how the draft is and what a true crapshoot it is in the NHL versus every other sport. The only other sport it's comparable to is baseball,
Yep.
which also has an enormously high bust rate in the first round, specifically because you're talking about projecting literal teenagers.
If you get 30 to 45 points, a 50-point career year out of Newhook for the next 7,
AKA JT Compher's
like-
career.
right.
If
You're
you think-
smacking high fives.
All I would say is if you think Newhook is a disappointment, go look up the history of the 16th overall pick, and I think it'll change your mind.
Yeah, compare him directly to Martin Coughton. How do you feel?
I mean, pretty bad overall. This is a sad conversation.
Just
I mean,
like,
go
oh,
look.
oh,
He's not wrong. Go look at the 16th overall pick's history, and you get an idea of the types of play. Now, are there players who are drafted later than that go on to
Yes,
be great?
every
Of
year.
course.
Absolutely.
But it's not like you're looking at the draft going, I'd rather have the 25th pick than the 16th pick. Yuck, yuck, yuck.
We do have to let you guys know about another draft. In this case, DraftKings Sportsbook. You can go over there with the conference finals ramping up in the NHL playoffs. A new account with code DNVR can bet $5 on a hockey game and get $100, $150 even in free bets. So go get your free money. Go put it wherever you want. I would not put it on Cale Makar, for the record. He's not going to win the Norris. But you can...
Oh, this year.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty declarative to say about next
Yeah.
season.
For next year, go off. Do whatever you want.
He's
next
got to be
year.
the betting favorite because even in the down year, he ended up a finalist, which tells you he's loved in a way
Yeah.
that no other Avs player is.
They want to give it to
They
him.
want to find everybody loves Cale Makar.
So
Except Seattle.
Jump on that with DraftKings. You can go bet on whatever you want. Doesn't have to be hockey. You can get in on the Nuggets playoff run wherever you fancy. But you must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. See the show notes down below for details or go to DraftKingsSportsbook.com for more. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Be sure to use the DNVR code, and it's all void in Ohio. Also brought to you by the fantastic people, the future of television even, at Fubo TV. Go to FuboTV.com/DNVR today or use the QR code on screen there to get 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro. It's over 140 channels. They got movies, they've got television, they've got ESPN. They've got you covered for sports. ESPN's new pickleball league we were talking about earlier. You can watch it on Fubo. You're covered with Fubo TV. They got everything you need. It's right on your television. You turn on the app just like watching cable. It's that easy. It's the part that no one has to fuss with it. No one has to do anything annoying to get to the streams. You're just watching your stuff. So check them out, FuboTV.com/DNVR to order today. Get those price off your first month of Fubo Pro. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by no one because I'm slowly breaking that habit. All right. So, JT Compher walking. We're all comfortable with that? Yes.
I mean, like, what? That's what's going to happen?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd say it's more than likely.
Okay. So
I wouldn't say it's guaranteed, but
this is
You can't make any guarantees.
Here's
man.
where a sneaky
Just
little solution
irresponsible.
comes in for Colorado. If JT Compher is going, yes, the Erod conversation is one we'll have on a different show. I think we can do a full show on that. Lars Eller.
what about him?
Do you consider keeping him with a potential center slot open if JT Compher is leaving?
Not really.
No?
I was gonna say I just don't.
No.
I think he fit really well for how long you needed him to fit. I just don't.
You don't see any longevity there?
No, I don't. I just don't. If they brought him back to be the Darren Helm replacement,
Well, so here's
Fine.
where I see it being useful is he can replace some of the penalty kill side of special teams that you're going to lose by dropping JT Compher.
jeez.
Someone's slamming doors out here.
That was like a slam of a
Yeah,
door.
I
It
was
shook
gonna
the
say.
entire building.
Damn, that was.
And you don't go out and get
aggressive.
Lars expecting to replace very much offense of anyone. But if you're looking for a role player, if you're trying to play a little bit of money puck, I think you could get Lars pretty cheap,
What's pretty cheap?
2 at most.
I'm not paying $2 million for my 4C.
No way, dude. Not a shot.
I don't know. Knowing Jared Bednar, is he really your 4C? It's just throwing that out there.
That's even worse
Well, I
because
was
his
gonna-
offense took such a nosedive.
I
I
hear
was
you.
gonna say, so
and he
then at that
hear
didn't
you.
point,
produce, and
so then at that point, your question is:
he then
do you
becomes
want Lars Eller to be your 3C and replace JT Compher? And for me, the answer is an outright
no,
no.
he's
Well, and
not.
Then he becomes the face of
He's
your
not
lack of production.
straight up
Right.
replacing JT Compher. He would be a piece of a bigger puzzle that would have to replace him.
I don't know. There's a lot of word salad coming out of you right now, Rude. I'm not sure which. point you're
I
trying
don't
to
think
push.
this is word salad at all.
My interest is if he'll take $1.5 million and he's the hard 4C, I'm there.
Yeah,
Okay,
cool.
I'm with AJ.
I'm good.
So it has to be 1.5 at most.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, I say that, but it's like if it was 1.75, I'm not throwing
2
a
is
fit,
too much.
dude.
How about that?
Yeah.
Because again, that's just to me. If you're bringing him back, that's to be your fourth line center. It's to fill the Darren Helm role. I don't think Lars Eller is anything beyond that. If you get some injuries, can he flex up in the lineup? Sure, but like I still think
I don't think you want him to.
no.
That's
right,
again,
right.
once again, this is where Evan Rodriguez is a more valuable free agent to me.
I agree.
Because
I
he
agree with
does
that.
flex in your lineup. He does play both wings. He does, if you need him to, he can play down the middle. It's not great defensively, especially, but he can do it. So I think he's just the higher priority for me in trying to figure him out. If Lars will stay for cheap, I'm good with
Like
it.
on a
but-
1-year deal, yeah.
Hey, I tell you what, if he would take a 2-year deal at $1.5 million, I'm fine there.
Okay.
I have no bones about that whatsoever.
That comment right there that says if you're gonna make Eller or if you're gonna give Eller $2 million, just make Myers your 4C
Well,
and be
so
done
here's-
with it.
Well, I think
Here's-
Myers has to be in this conversation, and
He
anyway,
should be. He absolutely should be.
if they don't bring back Cogliano, then he's on the left wing next to LOC and Lars Eller on opening night. Where they don't spend the money is where Ben Myers goes.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the thing is he gets a qualifying offer, and wherever they don't spend money is where Ben Myers fits in the bottom of their roster.
And look, I think there's a conversation about how they want to spend their money, and I'm sure we'll get into it over how aggressively should they target someone like Ryan O'Reilly this offseason. But just from the numbers perspective of it, if you give Lars $1.5 million, Okay, maybe he replaces some of that defensive side from Compher. And then you take the other $2 million of Compher's contract, YOLO Jonathan Drouin.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe.
Not as confident as the rest of us make it.
Why don't you like Drouin?
Oh, I didn't say that.
No. But I mean, like, we both answered adamantly yes. You said maybe. Why?
I don't know. I'm not sold on Drouin.
I know why.
There are real red flags there.
Well, I know, but as a reclamation project, like you're bringing him in knowing that there's red flags. I guess.
It's not even personal to Drouin. It's
Megan hates Jonathan Drouin.
No, it's the reclamation projects are starting to build up a little. Like, okay, I don't want to classify Myers as a reclamation project, but they are trying to mold him into an NHL ready player at 24,
You only
turning
have so
25.
much room for guys.
And they're trying to find his fit a little bit. And even Newhook, to a different extent, he's not a reclamation project, but he is a project in a sense. They need him to take a step forward. Like, I'm just in the bottom of the lineup starting to grow a little concerned. I say that as I pitch for a different piece in Zach Aston Reese being a part of the bottom six. But to me, I don't know. To me, that is a cap-friendly option that I'm a little more confident in.
Well, you definitely know what you're getting in Zach Aston Reese and what you're not getting. And with Jonathan Drouin,
you
you're
could
not
be getting a 50-plus point guy.
You can't put him on a fourth line and ask him to do anything.
That will
for
be
you.
a disaster.
He
sure.
has to be on in an offensive situation. You're talking about a guy who historically has been a bad defensive player, has not been able to stay healthy, has 17 goals in 163 games. So you're not talking about a guy that's lighting the lamp. His value is almost entirely in his playmaking. And to Megan's point here, as far as reclamation projects go, the dreaming on Jonathan Drouin is a whole lot of imaginary things becoming real, where it's not asking. It's would you rather dream on Jonathan Drouin or Alex Galchenyuk?
So that's the other thing. That's one of my reclamation projects that's stacking up a little bit here. Is Galchenyuk's a part of that too?
I really do though. I hear what you're saying, and like I think there's really only been two players that you've mentioned there, that Drouin being one of them, that would be considered like reclamation. And I really think that that's to stay in your contention window in the cap era. Those are the type of guys you have to have. Like, we think there could be something here. We're going to get him on the cheap and see if it works out.
Look at what happened with JT Compher. You saw his assist numbers explode this year.
Right.
Jonathan Drouin, a guy who assists, you stick him on the other side of Mikko, and what do you know?
And again, like that's...
Well, and that's the best case scenario, is you get Jonathan Drouin for $1 million.
I'm selling you the dream
He wins your job in your top six as your second line left wing. He on the other side is Val Nichushkin, and in the middle is the new center that you will bring in.
The disaster
via
is...
either free agency or whatever. Yeah, and he ends up giving you 35 assists, and you love that, and you're all about that.
And the downside is he plays 15 games for you and does nothing.
That's $1 million. I can live with that.
Okay.
There's just a lot of, like, the downside is if it doesn't pan out and he gets buried in the bottom of the lineup, there's already a lot of unknowns that have yet to prove themselves in the bottom of the lineup. And there's a need for penalty killers specifically.
This is why I'm about Eller.
And I wanted to, like, go back to that, and it's not specific to just Eller, but that is going to be something important that they do need to look at in how they're filling out the bottom of the lineup.
One thing I will say about Drouin, if they do spend that money and he ends up struggling, it's bad money spent. I'm with you on that. But I think that's the type of player that the Avs wouldn't be afraid to just scratch and move on.
Right. And I just think that it's a guy like that who, to you guys' point, and I want to make sure, it's a lot of, hoping that he gets there. Like, there is the upside there. And if nothing else, you can finally get an answer to the McKinnon and Drouin connection question.
They won't even play together. It'll be funny.
And we can finally just all move on from it happily, that it'll never be this what if, or it won't be this what if anymore. I think that's a guy that makes pretty easy sense as a middle six. See what you can get out of him. I do think Alex Galchenyuk is a name that we need to keep coming back to this summer. I think that relationship has gone very well from both sides. I think Alex Galchenyuk took big steps this year away from the puck, to the point where I was telling Megan, or we were talking about it, we were surprised that he didn't get a look near the end of that series as the injuries just kept piling up. So I do think he's an interesting guy that they could bring back and could play a role in this bottom six that we're talking so much about today. Who could be this? Who could be that? And one of the answers might be in Loveland.
It very well could be more than just Galchenyuk, but he's certainly on the list. It's something we will continue to talk about.
Wouldn't that have been like the perfect kind of guy to come into Game 7 and score 3 goals? Like, here comes Alex Galchenyuk.
And stunt on all the NHL.
Yeah.
Gonna finish.
I think the stunting will happen next year.
Yeah, I hope
For Galchenyuk?
so.
Yeah.
I can say too, because like even in the Calder Cup playoffs, he was not a points leader, and that was true of a lot of people. Though, like there were a lot of players that didn't quite show up on the score sheet that you expected to. So that's not to call out Galchenyuk specifically, but because he did all the regular season, he was a point per game thereabouts player with the Eagles. So like full credit to Galchenyuk. But
what I loved was Megan. It seemed like every time you went up to Loveland, you came back with a report from them saying like his play away from the puck is growing by leaps and bounds.
they love him, and honestly, Bednar affirming that, because I obviously see things and hear things in Eagles country that corroborates how I feel about, I'm seeing this, Cronin's seeing this, Schneeklas seeing this, but hearing Bednar see it too really validated. This is genuine improvement. I know there are people who are down on Galchenyuk, but we weren't the only ones seeing it.
And I loved that it seemed like the Avs like really approached that type of player the right way, where it's like, hey, we're going to integrate you into our system. Like, we don't want this to be a one and done. You're here for a year and then, you're a mercenary somewhere else. Like, we want to integrate you. We want to teach you how to play away from the puck, teach you schemes, get you to fit in this offense.
Well, he's a guy that if he can figure out how to get himself open, his shot's good enough for sure. There's no doubt.
Scored 30 goals in the NHL.
This perceived success with Galchenyuk is another reason why a guy like Jonathan Durand would have incentive to come here for $1 million.
Yep.
Because it's not like there aren't going to be other teams that are in contention for that.
But can they put him next to goal scorers?
But also, they offer that kind of opportunity for him to. And if Evan Rodriguez does go out and get paid,
Yes.
if JT Compher does go out and get paid, then there's proof in the pudding for Jonathan Durand to say, just come in here and do your thing, man. We'll put you in an environment to be successful. We're not going to ask you to be something that you're not. We are going to work on parts of your game that haven't been very good. We're going to try and teach you how to play on the defensive side of the puck. But also, you look at all these guys that have come through Colorado and had career years and gotten paid.
Yeah.
Because you are looking at Jonas Donskois, Nazem Kadri, Andre Burakovsky, JT
who have all
Compher.
moved on to get big bucks.
Yeah, Evan Rodriguez. Guys who have all come in here and had either career years or close to career years and have justified other contracts.
Well, and then the ultimate example of Val Nichushkin, which
and Val Nichushkin was the guy that
one.
stayed.
And he stayed,
Right.
That's the guy who stayed.
Right.
And another guy, Arturi Lekkinen, another guy
Decided
who
to
stayed,
stay,
but a guy that they brought in and they said, we're going to throw some belief at you. And
dude, even to a lesser extent, Josh Manson. Like there's just examples, like I said, to an extent.
Yeah.
Like that guy came in and it blew out of the water expectations.
Definitely.
Well,
true.
and we're not talking about him much in the show, but Devon Taves is a great guy that they showed
Went
up
from
and we're like,
good defender to top 10 in the league.
went from being like, hey, this is a solid addition, it's a really smart, savvy move. Now he's a top 15 defenseman in the league who puts up 50 points a year and is on your top pairing who continues to kick ass.
We do have to wrap this show up, so I do have one final question for you. Free
Somehow
agency.
We did talk about Bowen Byram.
We'll get there.
Oh, there's so much to unpack there.
There's 3-4 months of offseason left. It's fine. Final question. Free agency, under or over $5 million for JT. What do you think happens? Not what would you do?
Gotcha.
I'm going to say under. I'm going to say he comes in at 4.75.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I'd love to just take 5.
5 on the nose.
That's why I picked 5.
Yeah. I'll go under with AJ. I think it comes in just shy of $5 million. Because I feel like $5 million is like a benchmark that teams will intentionally stay just under.
Well, just to be different, then I will
Nice.
say over.
Love it.
I will say over. Chicago's going to give him 5.01.
It's going to be, I don't think it's, but I think, all right, 5.25. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where we feel his open market value is. That's kind of the point I wanted to make there.
I just want to add one last thing. I mentioned the Kyle Dubas quote earlier. I guess he said right after that, he pointed to the Matthew Tkachuk trade from last summer and said, like,
anything's possible.
We're looking at stuff like that.
Yeah, good luck, because Calgary lost that trade despite getting two very good hockey players.
But I think it's interesting that he's essentially saying, like,
is he looking at firing himself?
I would love for us to do a show this week or next week or whatever about William Nylander. I think that's at bare minimum a conversation.
I mean, you're definitely answering the phone. I don't
that's,
think,
and that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't go put money on that deal getting done. But if Kyle Dubas calls you, he's like, you guys want to talk about William Nylander?
I'm not saying no.
You're not saying, you're not hanging that phone up.
Yeah. All right. On that little juicy tidbit that could be nonsense, we're out of here. We appreciate all y'all
Likely nonsense.
hanging out with us. We will be back tomorrow, likely talking more free agency and internal Avalanche stuff. We'll probably get into a draft show later this week. Tune in.
Still hope for Friday.
Yeah, that's the plan. And we will talk to you on the next one.